Hello, hello. Please feel free to write something, introduce yourself to the speakers. All the speakers are in, waiting for the participants. Yep.
Adam from Canada. How awesome. Welcome.
Oh. So it's like 3 more minutes before the time.
So tell us all where you're from in the chat window.
Yeah. Mailing. Yeah, please go ahead and write to us.
Tanya from Thailand. Got Unita from Indonesia and Tanya from Thailand. This could be a song. Andrew from Singapore. Awesome.
Well, we must have participants for over like 20 something countries.
John S. from West Bloomfield. I have a feeling that might be somebody I'm related to.
I've been there once, West Bloomfield, the only once.
I actually think that's my cousin. That is John, my cousin John from.
Oh, that's.
I was not just tuning in. He actually works in a field this is relevant to. He's not just here to see me.
Oh,
as
wow.
If anybody would. Edward from wow. I can't even pronounce that.
Can't pronounce that. Your
Jakarta. Awesome.
Yeah, I only know Jakarta. I didn't know there's like another one that's a very similar name. Yogyakarta. How do I spell it? Yeah. So we are about like 1 minute to 9 o'clock. And we just wait a bit of time for some more participants to come in, and then we will definitely start. No.
So Ethan, I see you have a gamer chair.
Yes.
I've been really having my eye. I've been really looking around at those.
Yeah. I have this chair I bought in Shanghai, and when I moved back to Malaysia, I shipped it back to Malaysia. It's very heavy and sturdy. I like it a lot.
It's funny because I got a nice office chair, for when I moved into this place, think it would be okay. But now I see all my friends who are working online all day using gamer chairs, even musician friends of mine.
Yeah, you should try one. It's like fantastic. You feel great. I mean, it's much better than my office chairs or anything.
Mm.
Yeah. Well, I've been a gamer all my life. I'm still playing computer games. Like when I was very young, I thought that I want to go to the University of Michigan to study computer science. The reason I want to do that is because I want to be a gamer. I thought it would be really cool if I go to a computer lab to play games every single day. And then when I went to the university, I can't do that anymore. Like there's so many like.
Oh. I spent, because I was in the generation before gaming when we were still using the big console game. So did you spend any time in Pinball Pete's in Ann Arbor?
Yeah, everybody goes there.
Then I did undergrad at Michigan State, and so that was my second home, was at Pinball Pete's.
You guys are bringing back memories. When I was a computer operator at school at Emory University, somehow we had a PDP-8 in the computer room. We were really running on mainframes, and the PDP-8 had a lunar lander game, which was actually vector graphics. It was like the first vector graphics game. It was so cool. And if you successfully landed, your astronaut would get out and said, "I'll have a Big Mac and fries to go, please." It was a McDonald's on the moon.
Right, sure.
Well, I haven't thought about that in a long time. But we did while the time away with that game while we were waiting for requests to do stuff. I remember these huge, they had the discs in those days were literally this big, this tall, and 5 meg.
Right.
The big ones were 10 meg.
Wow.
Unreal. 256K of memory to support 20 people. That's when I started out. Cards.
That was
and there was the debate. I remember like the way people debate Agile, there was this debate. Are terminals a good thing? Maybe cards is really the way we ought to stick. They're so much more efficient.
Oh gosh. I managed to avoid cards. I just came right in for that generation, but still spent a lot of time. I actually used a paper terminal, an old deck writer.
Oh yeah. I had I think a PDP-9 I used at MIT was a paper thing to come in, and then man, that was horrible.
Do you guys think that we have better games nowadays because we have Agile?
Oh my gosh. Yes.
I think the gaming community has been better than Agile in many ways. They're full movie production sets. And I've actually worked with some gaming companies. There are some really, really good. And they've improved a lot because of Agile, but they've also done a lot on their own. Oh, I'm trying to think. There's one company, we started them off, but I won't take any credit. I can't think of their name, that does just amazing stuff. Because there's a lot of, if you're a gamer, I mean, if you're a company that's writing stuff like that, you have to be open to learning, trying new things. You're very inventive. You're not stuck in a way of thinking. And I think that's really the core of Agile. And a lot of companies do not do that. They're really stuck in their way of doing things.
Yeah.
There's someone saying that Minecraft. Yeah. I think
it's not Minecraft I'm thinking of. I think it is with an R, but I can't think of it. It's weird. I know they're in the Southwest someplace. Oh, I might as well show this while I got a chance. This is just one of our t-shirts I had at Net Objectives.
What's that?
Insanity doing the same. Right. So everybody's known that. What we have on the back of the shirt was, I used to be insane. Now I'm different.
Well, that's from Albert Einstein, right?
Actually, I think it goes back to Ben Franklin, but Einstein is attributed to saying it now.
Okay, it's 9:04 right now. I think we are ready to start. We have Prince of Persia here. Oh, so someone's playing Prince of Persia. Yeah, I spent a lot of time playing that platform game as well. So welcome everybody. It's 9:05 already, and there are more participants keep coming in, but this is the time to start. Like we are 9:05 right now. So I would like to welcome Alan Shalloway, Jeff Stuit, and Ann Spence as our speakers today. So for all the participants, thanks for coming into the Move Forward Asia main event. Last week we have an event where all the speakers have presented their School of Knowledge, and tonight everybody's gathering here because we want to have some tough questions to ask about Agile and Agile transformations, right? So so gentlemen, do you like to introduce yourself a little bit and the School of Knowledge, whatever? Like, just tell all the participants about yourself. Want to go first? Go for it.
I can go first.
Yeah.
So I'm Jeff Stuit. I'm talking to you this morning from Cascade, Michigan, in the United States. I have been a Scrum practitioner for about 14 years now, and now go around the world helping people practice Scrum at scale. And so I've been really in the Scrum and Scrum at scale work for quite a few years, mainly as a practitioner and as a coach. Up until the pandemic, I really traveled the world doing this. It breaks my heart that I can't be with you all in person today, but it's great to see so many people from around the world being able to share some of this. So again, my emphasis has really been as a coach and a practitioner. I go and help people practice this stuff. And so hopefully I can tell a few stories today of some of those experiences I had around the world with Scrum at scale.
I'll go next. I'm Al Shalloway. It wasn't called Agile back then, but in '99 when I got introduced to XP, so I've been kind of doing it then. And I remember a couple of years we were trying to figure out what is this thing called. We didn't have a name for it. I'm now Director of Thought Leadership for Agile at Scale programs. at the PMI. I had been the founder and CEO of Net Objectives from '99 till I was acquired. And I actually got acquired because I've always been impressed with the membership and people wanting to learn. So it's been kind of interesting, but I'm very pleased with what we're doing with Disciplined Agile, which is really what I'm now part of. Disciplined Agile was also acquired. I was brought in mostly really for the Flex system I created, which is called Flow for Enterprise Transformation. It's the heart of the DA Value Stream Consultant system. I'll talk about that a little bit later, I'm sure. I co-founded Lean Kanban University with David Anderson, but I left that after a little while. I was the first non-SAI SPC trainer, contributor, and I was first non-SAI SPC trainer because I knew Dean Leffingwell, and we'd also, when they started SAFe, we had our own Agile at Scale program back then at Net Objectives, been a gold partner for SAFe and a contributor. And I've co-written 5 books ranging from patterns to team process to enterprise agility. So I've been kind of around the block everywhere and basically do my work now just based mostly on flow, lean, theory of constraints, things of that nature. So, and I live in Carlsbad, California, but a lot of people know me from living in Seattle because I was there. I'm actually moving back to Seattle in a few months for family reasons, all good. But that's me.
Oh.
Hi, so I'm Ian Spence. I'm speaking to you from Brighton in the UK. I've been involved in this industry a long time, like Jeff and Al. I'm here with my SAFe Fellow hat on. I did meet Al at the first SAFe Program Consultant training sessions back in Boulder many years ago. I've also contributed to the SAFe framework. I could also put my Scrum at Scale hat on and play Jeff's role because I'm a Scrum at Scale trainer as well as a SAFe trainer. So I'm not a framework fundamentalist. And I spent a lot of time working with companies, helping them to get better. I was doing it before Agile. I used to do iterative development back in the days of the Rational Unified Process. And I've written a few books. I did write a book on managing iterative software development, which was just published just before Scrum went big. And Ken Schwaber was one of the reviewers of the abstract for the publisher. And he said, well, you won't need this book. Scrum's going to take over the world. But you get your knowledge by standing on the shoulders of those who have come before you. And many of the things we're doing today is things that were being done 50 years ago, iterative and agile development. It's being done at IBM 50 years ago. Didn't have as many buzzwords, didn't have as good branding and marketing, but it's all been there. So what I enjoy is helping customers, and I do a lot of big things. So I've been working with the Square Kilometre Array. This is the biggest science facility man has ever built. It's a radio telescope that's going to allow us to detect things about the universe we've never been able to detect before. It's tens of thousands of dishes in the South African desert, hundreds of thousands of antennae in the Australian desert. They're building supercomputers to do the data processing, and they're building all the software for that with SAFe. I'm also involved with the European Space Agency for their ground stations. I've worked with people like Ericsson and banks regularly, handling groups of 1, 2, 3,000 people. But I also do smaller stuff. One of my customers launched the end of last week, a company called Dfinity, who are building an internet computer. It's going to be as big as blockchain. You can go and buy tokens now. And I'm helping them, but they have a very different scaling problem because they don't have thousands of people. So I work in all kinds of industries, all kinds of stuff, and hopefully can provide some help for you today.
So thanks for spending time with us, Ian, Jeff, and Alan. Tonight, we have a wide variety of participants from Japan to Turkey, from New Zealand to Thailand. So there's a wide variety of background here. So I think they are coming to listen to this event because they want to know more about Agile and Agile transformations. So right now we live in a very strange time, right? That's the pandemic all over the place, especially in Asia, right? The cases are spiking. People are going to work remotely. In the Europe and US, people are starting to go back to life. But in Asia, pretty much we are going more towards like distributed teams, working from home and stuff like that. So to start off, everyone, please tell us like why the school of knowledge you advocate is relevant in today's landscape, right? Certainly want to hear from your opinion, and certainly I hope that you guys can have some crossover so it's not a one-dimensional like that speech, right? So feel free to say, hey, Jeff, kind of disagree with you in this point because stuff like that, right? All right. So, all right, who want to go first?
I'll go first because actually you sparked something that I hadn't even really thought about. When we talk about what we identify or what's relevant, I want to be clear that discipline Agile is not what I identify with. I actually identify what discipline Agile is based on. And what it's based on are theories of flow, lean, theory of constraints, organizational development, human behavior, ideas of leadership, things like that. And we're a kind of agnostic actually in that sense. And one of the big things about flow and lean have to do with focusing on delays. And people, the mantra eliminate waste has been in there from manufacturing. And in manufacturing, where you can see things, you can see the waste. In knowledge work, it's hard to see waste until you're reworking and having troubles. It's really delays that are the issue. So one of the differences actually, when you mentioned the pandemic, I just kind of had this realization, we've been actually addressing this in some ways. Virtual work is virtual, but there's still a time concept. There are actually some advantages to virtual work. But this is the key thing. The relevance to me is these are timeless factors. Also, we use patterns. When I say timeless factors, I think of Timeless Way of Building by Chris Alexander, which we base a lot of our work on. And by the way, that's probably my #1 recommended book for technical and non-technical. It's not a technical book. It's a design book. It's a thinking book. My second would be The Choice by Ellie Goldratt, the creator of Theory of Constraints. And he's known for The Goal, and The Choice is just as good. So the thing is, it's really, our approach is based around how does the world work in a sense? And what are your problems? And how do you apply your problems? How do you apply how the world works? Like again, delays are an issue. Or how do people organize? How does the value stream work? Things like that. And what this does, it gives you a set of principles and practices where you can actually make decisions, but that can be overwhelming and abstract. And also we include what we call a toolkit that enables you to choose how to work under your situation. So to me, this combination of pragmatism and a scientific approach, and I use the word scientific to mean, first of all, agnostic. We're interested in what actually works, but it's a combination of empiricism, which is one of the big fundamentals of Scrum, but also theory. And I think theory has been left out in a lot of frameworks, particularly Scrum. In theory, theory is kind of looking forward, like, hey, if I do this, what'll happen? Empiricism is kind of looking at what did happen and how to understand it. And I think that combination combined with practices is actually essential. And I think that's a mental attitude of critical thinking, and that's always relevant. So it's like, what are your problems? What are you trying to accomplish? Whatever set of solutions. But before the solutions, how do you think about your problems and then have options presented to you in a simple way? So that's kind of our approach. And I think for me, the difficulty is I tend to go abstract. Fortunately, I'm in a big team now where other people are more pragmatic. So it's that blend of pragmatism and theory that makes it work. And that's it. And I'm happy to be challenged or agreed with. I like the idea that we interact more than just give answers.
So Ethan, repeat the question for us, just to make sure we stay focused on this.
I hope I did stay focused on it.
You did. I just wanted to make sure if I started saying I stayed focused.
It's like today we live in a strange world, especially in Asia. Okay. We are working from home and stuff like that. That's the pandemics, right? So I'm asking, why is the school of knowledge you advocate especially relevant here in this landscape at this time?
Yeah. You know, I can say personally, one of the reasons that I think that what we practice is so important is that it gives us a way out now, personally and in our communities. You know, I'm sitting here in the state of Michigan, which in the last couple months in the United States has been the hardest hit place for the virus, just horrible in the state of Michigan. And the other place is in the world that's getting hit bad by the virus is my second home, which is in India. You know, I would be in India right now if it weren't for the pandemic. And to me, these are you know, one of the things that occurred to me recently is that actually choosing to take on scaling often is actually an admission of failure, that we actually haven't applied this to ourselves and our own teams and improved enough, and we're looking to some outside solution. And that is actually where I think learning agility in my realms, learning to be a good Scrum practitioner is so important because it gives you a means to start iterating yourself and iterating your community, right? Is to band people together in a team, in an organization, in a community, and do that kind of empirical experimentation. Instead of looking for a solution from the outside, we know, this whole thing is based on the people that really know how to improve are the people that are engaged in doing things, right? And it's really built on that. And so that's why I think the kind of skills we're doing in our companies are so important in our whole societies. And so that's why I think it's so important that we keep practicing at this stuff today.
Thank you. Ian?
So I have to admit, I get a little bit angsty because I think we're probably all from the same school of thought. I've got no time for the fundamentalists. The first line of the manifesto, individuals and interactions over processes and tools. If anyone walks in and says you're using the wrong framework and that's all they've seen is a poster, I don't think they're qualified to comment. Yeah. Now, what we've seen with the pandemic is how companies have coped. And it stresses how agile they are because they have to be able to respond quickly and change. Some companies have thrived, others have struggled, some have been put on hold and are waiting to come back. But having an agile, flexible, scientific way of working, it helps you steer yourselves through these different changing times. And we're going to see more changes coming up because the world is becoming more virtual. The people, Definity I'm working with, it's an internet computer. It could be as game-changing as blockchain, right? And we're seeing, the arts now digital art being traded, Bitcoin and stuff going through the roof. And when you get 3D printing everywhere, I mean, the space, when, Musk and his rockets, he's got the world's biggest 3D printer and he can print new parts. Now that's great when you're only doing one rocket. When he's trying to make 1 million, it'll be a little more stressful. But we need to have that to keep going. And even technology companies, if you look at the top technology companies this year, they're not the same as they were 10 years ago. And a lot of them were great companies and a lot of them were agile. A lot of them were aware of a lot of this stuff. I remember Nokia were, the poster child of Scrum at one point. So we need to have agility and we need to have it broader and broader, not just software development, but the leadership, the management of these companies. And we need to see agile practices moving more into hardware and other things. So I think it's incredibly relevant. If companies aren't agile, if they don't, I go to fintechs and they still talk about the business and IT. And you just have to look at them and go, well, you're not a fintech then, are you? Because there's one business, right? And you're going to see more of this. And it's going to make a big difference, I think, on whether people survive and get through trying times like the pandemic, but also the changes in the new technologies and financial mechanisms are going to be.
Certainly, under this today's condition, right? Many businesses thrive, strangely, and many businesses go bankrupt, right? Because they are unable to meet the challenges, right? So the next question I really want to ask you guys is, so if we do it your way, like for example, if we do SAFe now, if we do Scrum Scale now, or if we do Flex now, right? So what is the if we have a great transformation, for example, right? So what's the reasonable expected benefit or ROI given a reasonable amount of time I invest into it? For example, like 6 months, right? If I've done it your way, if I do it correctly, right? So from your point of view, what's the benefit and ROI that I can be I will be enjoying over not doing it, right? Or something. So let's assume that we are successful in doing this. All right. Who want to go first, speakers?
Yeah. I can go first on that. That is something that every company has to define for itself. And that's the way you become successful at it, right? And you don't define, the worst thing you could do is say, we want to become more agile, right? Or we just need to deliver faster. Have a real stake in the ground. The most successful efforts at adopting agility in a company is when the company was playing a big game. The best one I was ever associated with, the vice president in charge of a 3,000 person development unit said, we need to get to a place where instead of our customers wanting to fire us, our customers have to be spending way more money on us, or else we're going to get shut down, right? It was a survival thing, but it's we've got to go from our customers wanting to get rid of us to our customers actually hiring and spending more money on us. And they were very successful at that. That really created that kind of survival measurement created a real intensity of practice around that. Recently, this was actually in the manufacturing realm, in the hardware realm. They had a new CEO that knew I had a lot of experience about this stuff, and it was very simple. I want to triple the revenue of this company in 2 years. Boom. That gave them a context. So if you're going to do this for your own company, choose a business result, a result that's relevant to your business or to your organization that's very measurable, right? Don't just try to become agile. I mean,
so Jeff, what would be one or two, sorry to interrupt you, what would be one or two ones that people will, the business result that you're talking about, that one or two business result that you think it would be reasonably fair to expect from your standpoint, or any other points, right?
Right. So you could, a simple thing I was associated with recently is there was a company that was developing a lot of new CRM tools inside their place, and they had a very specific business result. In 6 months, we need to cut our call center costs 30%, right? Now they were doing that by all of a sudden adopting customer-focused technology so customers can serve themselves instead of having to call into the call center. Very simple stuff, and they were looking to do that. There's a very simple thing to start with. So you choose a cost reduction realm or a revenue or market share, something that's very relevant to your company inside that 6 months window, and then choose a target, and then allow your own people to go and work towards that target.
Thank you, Jeff.
I can go next. And I really love that, Jeff. I think solutions looking for problems are not solutions. They're more dogma, I would say. And I love that sentiment. And in the Agile space, there are many different levels. You have teams, you have organizations, you have actually sub-organizations like a particular development group, you have organizations conflicting with each other. So one of the things we look at is, this is why we have a family of products. Like I'm responsible for the high end, the enterprise, the whole thing. We call it the Discipline Agile Value Stream Consultant Workshop, which creates a role of somebody to look over that whole thing. So at that level, we do have an overreaching goal that we're trying to achieve, and that's what we call business agility. How do you improve the delivery of value sustainably, quickly, with high quality? And then if you're at the top, it's the whole organization. If you're at a sub-organization, it's how it does it. If you're at a team, it's how does the team play part of that? We think that's our special niche, in a sense, as we've worked on improving organizations in terms of the ability to deliver value. And in the area of knowledge work, that includes IT, includes non-IT. There's a lot of other areas where that's not what people are trying to do. And but a lot of areas do. Like I worked with a group of nuclear physicists once years ago, which was actually pretty humbling. I have 2 masters, one from MIT, but I was the dumbest person in the room. It felt like a lot of times. These guys are all PhDs, totally brilliant. And I actually never think of myself as the smartest anyway. I'm in an area, I know certain things, but these guys were just amazing. And they were trying to figure out, how do you make sure nuclear bombs, which haven't been tested in 50 years, when you start thinking about this 70 years, it gets a little scary. This nuclear arsenal, nobody's tested anything because we can't. Then how do you make sure they're safe and all that, as if they can ever be safe? But the idea is that kind of work lends itself to agile knowledge work. That's what I mean by knowledge work, anything where you're thinking and building something. And in that regards, what I think there should be is more collaboration, a more holistic view, less frustration, greater collaboration, a way to continuously improve. A lot of agile methods are about getting started. We use the way you get started to continuously improve, which I think is very important. In other words, if you can figure out how to do the job for yourself, how to overcome your challenges for yourself to start, then it's like you can keep doing that. Like I am kind of dogmatic in our own team. I say, never use the word adopt, because you're not adopting anything. You're learning how to think. And never use the word complete, because you don't complete anything. It's always about improving. So you should have visibility. I mean, these are characteristics. The end goal is to improve value delivered to your customers. But to get there, you need this visibility, collaboration. And I think there's a sense of purpose and power that's missed. It's weird, because Agile was actually about empowering teams. It was actually about, and I say was, I do mean in the past tense, because it's gotten to be, I judge it in the real world. I don't judge what it says. And I go into so many teams doing Agile that are totally unempowered because they have to follow the framework. And I appreciate, Jeff and Ian, what you've both said, because I get you don't do this, that you have an approach that you take and you use a framework as a positive way of doing it. Mm-hmm. But many people don't do that. Many people use it as a hammer, like this is what you have to do. And it's actually, it's like EDCU breathing with you, because I know you don't do that. I mean, I could tell from how you're talking about it, and you said you don't do it. I trust and believe in Ian, like what you said, we've met before. So how do we make Agile? One of the things I think we need to do is make sure that 6 months from now, a year from now, people are breathing easier and feeling more empowered by actually showing that they're making decisions. And I think that's a key piece to it, or it won't sustain. I think 6 months is optimistic, but you can get some benefit in 6 months.
So sorry to interrupt, right? A young manager has to go to, let's say. So
what Jeff says is absolutely number one. You've got to understand why the organization is doing something.
Absolutely.
And that has to be about real business results. Now, what's scary is I think we just had 25 years of Scrum. We've had so many, I don't know how many, 20 years of Agile since the manifesto, right? And yet most people are still not very good at what they do, right? And that's why we still have all these people. I thought if Agile is a success, we'll all be able to work, because there won't need to be any more transformations. It'll be just the way people work.
That's the
point. But the problem all the time is the people, right? It's not the framework. The framework doesn't screw you up. It's the people that screw you up. All the frameworks have the same intent. They've got the same principles and stuff. Some of them give you more recipes than others, right? But they've all got their heart in the right place. They're all things people have seen work in certain circumstances. But you need to have that outcome in there. And you've got to make sure, we talked about empowerment. You've got to empower everyone in the organization. So when you say, what change would you expect to see in six months? I would say change in behavior from top to bottom. I was at one organization, I was talking to Jeff Sutherland about this organization. I was doing some work we were trying to establish a common operating model, some transparency from top to bottom. Right? It's not transparent. It's a Tower of Babel if everyone speaks their own language, right? It's not transparency if people hide stuff behind all kinds of strange shenanigans, right? So you need something to hold it all together. And there's a great cartoon by Henrik Nieberg showing Agile on a big pile of rocks teetering between chaos on one side and bureaucracy on the other, right? And one of my customers said, it's like gases, right? We want a liquid, and if we go too far, we freeze solid. If we go the other far, we turn into a gas and disappear, right? So finding that balance. And what you need is that business outcome, and then everyone lined up from top to bottom. 20 years, this company, good company, doing really well, doing Scrum for 20 years. I talked to Jeff. I said, we're doing this. He said, well, I gave a talk there 20 years ago, right? The work we did to join up top to bottom was the first time senior management changed their attitude, their vocabulary, or anything. So 20 years of Agile and nothing had changed at the top. So you're looking for that. Whatever your bubble is, those business goals Jeff was going, you're seeing that behavior change from top to bottom, right? And everyone, you know, empowerment isn't just for the teams, it's for the leaders, it's for the managers, it's for everyone in the organization. And that's what you'd want to see after 6 months, right? And
thank you. I think those are a lot of good points from all of you. I do really want to condense this question a little bit. So because young managers do have to go to their bosses and say, hey, I heard from this seminar that this is good. So if I were to implement SAFe, or I were to implement Scrum Scale, or I were to implement Flex, so I need to talk to my boss about it. So when I talk to my boss and get the consensus from my boss, right? What are 1 or 2 points I really want to highlight out of the many points that you gave just now that I would reasonably expect to get in about 6 months' times, right? So this is the question that the young managers need to talk to the boss about, right? And it couldn't be too long, the conversation. Can you please pick or choose 1 or 3 points like this? Yeah, Alan.
Yeah, and actually, I'll actually disagree with you, Ian. I don't believe that all the frameworks have the same things. I think I've been kind of on a soapbox in some sense, saying some things are drastically missing in the Agile space, and
they've all got their heart in the right place.
I agree with the heart. I'm not going to talk about motivations, but there are differences. And I think one of the differences, and to your point, Ethan, is to me, and I agree, by the way, with it's all about the people. It is all about the people. But to get people, if you have people struggling, if you have people suffering, one way to improve how they work is to change the environment within which they work, so they can get their job done better. And that's actually our focus. This is a basic systems thinking, goes back to Deming and Lean, focus on the environment. But that's not what you would actually say to a manager, Ethan. So I'll get to that, but that is the approach. So there are 3 main areas that I think that organizations need to improve. One is, in a sense, what goes into the development funnel. Right now, most organizations use either epics and features and stories. And there's a huge gap, or MVPs. MVPs have been misused in a lot of ways. MVPs by Eric Ries is about new products, new innovation, usually a team or a small group of teams building things. And when you move it into, we're going to use this along a large organization, now you've actually made it so broad and wide, it has no meaning to it virtually.
It becomes a project management tool.
Yes. So we believe in MVPs. I love Eric Ries's work. Actually, we use what we call minimum business increments, which ironically, if you go back to the original definition of MVPs, is what it was, is I've got a product, and what's the next enhancement to it? What's the next thing I can build, or the minimum marketable features that unfortunately SAFe redefined. But if you go back to the original book, Software by Numbers, it's like, what's the next chunk? And so the reason this is important, because you can use these to have multiple teams see exactly what they need to do to get the next chunk of value out right from the start, in the middle of product management. So that's one thing. We will be able to know what we're building, who's needing to build it, and what we think the value is. Of course, you've got to do it iteratively and with feedback. The other thing is what's called the value creation structure. That term comes from, I think, Organized for Complexity. It's team topologies is built on this, is how do we organize our groups, not just to manage dependencies, but to eliminate dependency. So ARTs, Agile Restraints, are wonderful for getting teams off the dime. There's a lot of great stuff in SAFe. At the beginning, you get teams working together, you have an overall plan, you can see what's going on. It's totally brilliant to get you started. But then how do you keep going? So that would be another thing to talk about, is we will learn how to organize our people to be more agile in team structure, not just teams glom together, but what are the right working groups? And the third one is we'll work efficiently. The value stream is really the thing to look at. This is what Lean, this comes from Lean, 70 years old concept. Look at the workflow from start to finish. Any delay delays work, but there's something very insidious. Rework is caused from delays almost all the time. So we'll start looking at the right thing. You mentioned transparency, brilliant. Because if you can't see it, you can't manage it. There's a debate about if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. But if you can't see it, you certainly cannot manage it. So transparency, working on the right things, have the right organizational structure. That's where we're moving for. And I think all three of us are trying to do that, to make better agility. I don't see a difference, but there are differences in our approach, and there are different mindsets underneath each of our differences. And that may be just because that's what's the word? You do something because it's opportunistic. I don't mean that in a negative way. I did not mean, that sounds bad. That's not what I meant. What I mean is, because opportunistic sounds like not good. I mean that this is a good way to go because I see how to do it and it's easier. But I think there are different approaches to it. I think we'll get more into that. I'm actually enjoying the conversations here. Anyway.
Yeah.
Hopefully that wasn't
Ethan,
long.
you kind of asked, I want to rephrase your question, right? Because you asked, well, what kind of results can people expect after 6 months or something like that? And everything has to do with context, right? I can't inflict Agile, right, on a team or an organization and expect some generic result after 6 months, right? So and the best way I can do it is I just tell another story. One of the first organizations when I went off with coaches, it was a global charity, global relief organization. The IT organization was so hamstrung with process that they could never deliver anything. And so they had a new CIO, and he just threw out, all right, I would like you guys within 6 months to be able to get to deliver every 6 weeks. That's how bad they were. Everybody wanted to outsource IT. They had such a bad reputation. And I worked with them. We beat that deadline. Within about 3 months, we were able to deliver every 6 weeks by just staying very focused. But that was a specific context, right? Don't look for generic things. Don't go back to the kind of solution-based thinking. You can't inflict Agile as a solution and expect some generic results. Everything is in the context of your organization and the business problem you're dealing with.
So the young manager will have to interpret the situation himself and think about the context himself and try to link up the context with the effect of applying Scrum skill himself. That sounds like a big risk to handle.
Don't make it so difficult. Don't make it so difficult, right? You said, well, we want to try Scrum. If somebody says we want to go try Scrum and they go talk to a manager, that's actually the wrong question, right? I see Scrum, but I see Scrum as a means of creating a business result that we aren't getting now, right? Or an organizational result. Right? Always have it something is we're trying to create some kind of positive value result for ourselves, our customers, and our company. Scrum or SAFe is a means to do that. Here's why we do that. But CEOs aren't going to, typically shouldn't listen to people saying we want to become Agile. Right?
But there's a couple of things, all right? The language of, as Jeff said, the language of going to the manager, asking for permission and all that shows you've got a few hurdles to come over. You've got to understand what outcome you own, right? And how you can improve. I've done Agile in incredibly hostile environments. One of my most successful SAFe projects, they won 5 industry awards for best product, best partnerships, not for best agile, but 5 industry awards. They did it. I wanted them to write a case study, but they wouldn't do it. It was going to be called Succeeding with Agile in a Hostile Environment. They had no organizational support, right? They were one of the most traditional red tape bound organizations. But the guy who ran his particular portfolio of products, his people said, oh, they were doing Scrum, but they had no alignment, right? The project was going to get, the thing product was going to get cancelled. They came back, they said, we think if we do SAFe, we can do. And they went on to have an incredibly successful product because they talked about the product. It was about getting that success. So understand your outcomes, understand many people have done Agile in a hostile environment. One of my biggest bugbears is when people always say it's someone else's fault. Oh, we can't do it because of them. We can't do it because of them. We can't do it because of them. You get your bubble. You talk to that manager. You understand their problems, and you explain how this is going to make their life easier. Right? And you stand up and you and your team take some ownership. Right? We're going to do this. We're going to get better results. We're fully committed. And then if you don't let us do it like this and we do it your way, then if we fail, it's, this is what you've got to get that ball rolling. But I hate it when people go, we can't do it because of HR. We can't do it because of this. We can't do it because of that and all of that. Because you can. Now, you may not get to the promised nirvana that everyone talks about, but you can make your team's life better, your team happier. And that's how it grows. Success breeds success. People say, well, look at the fun over there. I want to be on that team. And you build it that way. So I think that the way you speak to those is understand, listen, understand. Don't make them feel irrelevant. Don't turn them into an out-group. Don't do the we don't need you anymore kind of stuff. But show how this is going to help make their life easier and get better business results, as Jeff was saying. And that you and your team buy into it. Right? And most good managers will give you some time. And once they start seeing, if you've never iterated before, once they start seeing demos every 2 weeks, their minds will be blown. Right? It's incredibly powerful stuff.
Ellen?
Yeah, I want to build on what Ian's saying. Ian, this is brilliant. Several things that you said I really think need to be kind of teased out a little bit because it's very brilliant. Personally, hostility doesn't bother me as much as passive aggressiveness, where everybody's going along and saying, oh, that's great. And then when it comes to action, it just, nothing happens. So, but what you said about never blaming is so critical, because if you start blaming, one of the things that happens is you completely disempower yourself as well. It's like it's their fault. Well, you have no control over them. You only have control over you. What I like to do, and I wrote a paper on this once, just a blog, something like, what do you do when somebody doesn't get it? Like, what if HR doesn't get it, for example? Okay, now if you think HR is this bureaucratic mass that is never going to change how they are, well, maybe that could be true. In fact, maybe it is more often than not. But if you have that thought, you have no power with them. Instead, if you believe that they're actually good, which is a fundamental cornerstone of agility, that people are good and we need to enable them and empower them, that means empowering HR. Then the question is, what is it you see? So this is like talking to the audience here. What do you see that they don't see? Assuming they're intelligent, motivated people, why do you think they should be operating one way and they think they should be operating a different way? Now, there could be two reasons for this. One reason is they see things they shouldn't be attending to and they don't see things they should be. That's on them. The other one is you may not know something that they know. I mean, you may even be mostly correct. I think HR can be agile. So the thing to do is then engage with them in a conversation, not a debate. But what is going on? How do you get this value? Work with them as a team. You know what you know, they know what they know, but come from that they actually will make good decisions if they knew the right things to make. And I think that's an important piece to it. There was something else, but I kind of lost what it was. But that's, to me, the key piece is interact with management. Oh, here's the other piece. What Ian said about when they start getting feedback every couple of weeks, that'll blow their minds. See, that's not in their world of possibility right now. So, I mean,
Yes.
For many people. So once you demonstrate a difference, you've added credibility, you open up a whole new world for them. And they will relate to that because that's what they care about. They don't care about Agile, but they do care about 2-week movement. Every 2 weeks, they can see what's going on. They care about that. So talk to them in their perspective. You'll get a lot more effectiveness. And I think Jeff and Ian this is what we're all saying, basically. We have different approaches, but they're all important.
Okay, gentlemen, I want to switch gear a little bit to kind of different questions of why is it so hard to do this? Now, we have a lot of case study on the internet. We have really a lot of case studies. All the principals are making their case studies like godlike, right? And even the junior consultant, they have been citing Spotify, they've been citing a lot of case studies, right? So the case study perhaps are well made, but for the average Joe, right? We keep getting a transformation, unhappiness, failed transformation, stuff like that is tough, right? So we didn't become Spotify when we use Spotify method, whatever, right? So stuff like that. And then people are really puzzled about this, right? Why is it so difficult? So what's your thought about the case study on the internet? Like they're so good and the average Joe not being able to do it and stuff like that. So what's your thought? And what can they do to make it better, increase the odds of success?
I mean, it's people.
Yeah.
Change is difficult, right? Change across organizations is more difficult than any other kind of thing to do, right? Geoffrey Moore did some work on Zone to Win about why the top 20 companies are not the same as they were 10, 20 years ago, because those were great companies, right? I worked for some of them back in the day, you know. They were cutting edge, but the waves of technology have blown them away. And a lot of it comes down to disruption. Disrupting your own organization is incredibly difficult, more difficult than disrupting other people's, right? So change is hard, right? And when you say, oh, they've been through these transformations, you know, and they've failed, it comes down to people, the length of time. Right? Al said earlier, you know, 6 months and you're going to get great results, you know. Oof.
But then we can't change the people. We can't change the people in the company. So,
well, I have been in places where they've tried every process and framework for the last 20 years and they've failed every time. And there's only one common thread through. It's because when they fail, they blame the framework. When they fail, they blame. I don't like anyone who says we failed because of this framework. Right? You dig away at it a little bit. It's like, well, why did you do that? Particularly when they're choosing it themselves. So you've got to own the change. But the biggest problem is to take an organization agile is something you don't measure in 6 months. It takes a long time. And as Al said, you're never really finished. And what used to be the biggest problem was the person who led the change at the top would be successful and move on, and they'd be replaced by somebody more traditional who would set the organization back. Right? So changes at the top level leadership and management. We're seeing less of that now because people who have been successful with an agile approach in one organization are taking leadership positions in others, and that's helping. I think the rates fade. But it's not understanding the goals, the business goals. It's not continually improving. As Al said, the framework is not your end game. That's your starting point, right? And getting that culture and the companies that have that culture of continuous learning, of changing, of embracing new technology are the ones that are going to survive in the new industries, right? And in the transformation of the old ones. So it's just tough.
Yeah. And it's really changes a muscle you have to build. Organizations that do this actually know how to change. You know, we talk about transformation, about I'm going to adopt this framework, I'm going to do it, and one day the clouds are going to part and the light will start shining down and we'll be transformed. No, transformation is a muscle too. You have to learn how to do this. And this is kind of why, you know, that this is a lot of, particularly I can talk my perspective for Scrum at Scale, is you start with people involved from the top to the bottom of the organization, but you start small and experience the failures and learn how to, as an organization, deal with them quickly. right? You know, the I could say a little bit more, and I'm sorry, there's a lawnmower outside my window if you hear that. If look, if in Scrum and Scale, we say the three main ways that organizations fail is they can't prioritize and focus on the right things. They can't deliver. They can't organize to deliver, and they can't iterate their own organization. They're not willing to change their own organization at the team and organizational level. All of that has to do with people, just like Ian says, right? And I'm sorry, I have to take, we had one question out there that I'm going to call attention to, is that somebody asked, how do you measure productivity at the individual level? The premise is reinforce positive habits. No, that is not the premise, right? And the reason we don't measure productivity at the individual level is that we've known from 50 or more years of research that is a horrible way to approach the problem. We do that because it's easy. It's easy to focus and blame somebody on the individual level that they don't have the right habits. It's really hard to actually start iterating ourselves and our own organization and look and saying maybe the environment we have is getting people's way. W. Edwards Deming was writing about this 60 or 70 years ago. And it's, we don't do it because we haven't built the muscle up to know how to change these things.
Yeah, Jeff, I really like that. I'll say it I'll give a affirmation of that about the individual using a sports metaphor. You really don't want a lot of great individuals. You want a great team. That's what made the Chicago Bulls so good. I forgot their coach's name all of a sudden, but he wrote a book about it. It's an amazing book. It's really one of the best books on Agile I've ever read. And it's very interesting and anecdotal. And I was, of course, a Sonics fan at the time, and I hated to see the Bulls win, but my son was a Bulls fan. So we had some good times debating against each other, which was better. Well, obviously they were. But I wanted to answer a little bit of what Ian said and what Jeff said too, that I really like this idea. You have to know how to change. And in fact, that's actually the basis in some ways of, know how to learn. This idea, yes, it is the people. And I've been, Jerry Weinberg used to say, no matter what it looks like, it's always a people problem. Okay, yet I'm mostly a lean guy, systems thinking guy, thinking the environment causes most of the problems. And it's like, how do you reconcile? Because I believe both comments. It's always a people problem and the system causes the problem. Now, wait a moment, those don't sound reconcilable, but in fact they are, because part of what the people need to do is change the system. They need to own the system. This is kind of what Ian was saying, that I really like, that you can't blame these other people for it. It's how do we do it? You can't blame the framework. And Spotify, I think, is a great example of what some people like to do that's actually wrong. First of all, I would run from anybody who recommends using the Spotify framework. There's no such thing as the Spotify framework. That was made up by consultants who observed Spotify. Spotify was a great solution for Spotify. It's got great ideas in it. We had actually created a lot of those at Net Objectives. When I saw the Spotify model, I said, oh, this is cool. This organization we've seen works, but it works for certain companies. It's not a solution for everybody. So, and what I like about, and I got to admit, this session is just brilliant. And it's turned out in a way better than I thought it would be. And the reason is, I'll admit, if you read my stuff, you'll know I have stuff about Scrum and stuff about SAFe. But when I listen to Jeff and Ian, if you want to do Scrum at Scale or SAFe, my suggestion is send them an email and find a consultant, because I'm sure they're too busy doing it all themselves, and say, hey, what consultants at Scrum at Scale and what consultants at SAFe have your mindset? I want them, because it has more to do with the attitude of the consultant and the framework they're using than the framework itself. Okay, I've used SAFe successfully. There's nothing inherently wrong with it when you use it properly, but it's often misused. And I think you even said that, Ian. So I'm not trying to bash it. I'm trying to get the essence of it. There's good stuff there. There's good stuff in everything, but it's what do you do with it? So I'm sorry, I kind of got off a little bit on that, but I wanted to emphasize what I really enjoy here is that we have three experienced Agilists taking completely different approaches but I think in a lot of ways trying to go to the same goal. And I think that's actually pretty encouraging. But I'm going to answer the question now that was asked too while I take my hand down. Okay, so why is it so hard? Why is driving on the wrong side of the road so hard? Now, that's kind of obvious, isn't it? Well, I suggest that most of the time we're driving on the wrong side of the road. Most of the time we're following something, we're not thinking, we're doing something because somebody said, and it's like, it doesn't always have to be hard. I mean, I've done this only a few times, but there are times I've impacted groups of like 100, 200 people, which is a lot smaller than really at scale, in a matter of days, because there was something they were missing that was a cause of a lot of their issues. And I'm sure Jeff and Ian has done the same. So the question is, why is it hard is a good question. And I suggest it's because mostly we're not attending to the real issue. And I'll bring up something now that's kind of part of our approach, but it's a very important issue. And you can do this in any method. Most companies are organized hierarchically. If you listen to all the conversation, it's like top-down management, who you're trying to get going. We manage this way. We manage vertically. We're usually siloed. But our work actually runs across the organization. Now, if you're managing vertically, you're looking at productivity, you're looking at people are busy, you're looking at if they're doing the right stuff. That all sounds good, but where's the management across? And this is what brings up the individual. We don't care individually what's going, we care about the cross. We care how does the individual contribute to the whole? And that's hard to measure except by how's the whole going on. So one of the reasons we have problems is we try to do top-down management when our work is flowing across. So if we don't pay attention to this value stream, if we don't have it visible to everybody, if we don't take systems thinking into account, if we don't take culture into account, and I want to rethink what culture is. This comes from David Mann's Creating a Lean Culture. And the book I recommend a little bit because it's about manufacturing and physical work, but the essence of it is culture is a reflection of management. In other words, if you have a culture of fear, it's because when somebody did something, management responded a certain way. If you have a culture of not transparency, it's because having transparency, management reacted a certain way. So what you want to do is create a shift in management, not managers, but how management is done by creating visibility work and seeing what's going on. So we have to attend to these things. And few methods tend to do this. They're either not properly designed or they're designed for somebody else and you're taking it on. They need to be sufficient without being complicated. And you need to learn as you go. Okay. That's pretty much it. That's both my answer and my kind of response to Jeff and Ian as well.
I had a couple of quick thoughts. The two reasons I see most for agile transformations failing. One is the middle management permafrost, right? Wedded to the old ways, people whose job it is to attend meetings with other people to talk about what a third set of people haven't done, right? So often as organizations grow old, they like gentle middle-aged men, get a middle-aged spread, and it's just as hard to shift as it is from your physical body. The second reason I see for agile transformations failing, agile coaches. Really badly behaved, not
Interesting.
Agile. I've been working on transformations where people employed to be an agile coach have sabotaged it because they think you're using the wrong framework. They've actually worked to undermine it, which is, in my mind, unprofessional behavior. But that's one of the biggest, the fundamentalists and all that kind of stuff. But when it does work, it works well.
Yeah, nowadays everybody call themselves agile coaches, even when they have 2 months of Scrum experience. So we're seeing stuff like that, right? So yeah, interesting. Jeff, you're muted yourself. You have something.
I was saying even less than that. I just go take a 2-day course now, and I can get certified in that.
What do you guys think about this situation? I mean, we are seeing this here as well. I have friends that have taken like 20 agile certifications. They have not implemented anything successfully before. And they are agile coaches, senior agile coaches, enterprise agile coaches, like enterprise transformation lead coach. Oh,
Well, I'll give a little advice that I've been given for years. If you see one person, and I don't really care so much what it is, that's been trained 5 different ways by the same organization or the same way, like, you know, I give less credibility to that than somebody who's learned from different organizations, because they're different perspectives, and that's what you want. And you want to get rid of the dogma, you know, like Ian mentioned. There's a lot of dogma out there. So one of the tests I do when I am going to hire somebody, I don't actually worry about their knowledge of a particular approach. I worry about their attitude about things. So I ask questions like, where does an approach apply? What do you know? Do you know Scrum? Do you know Kanban? Do you know Lean? Do you know Flow? And where do they apply? And you can learn a lot about how people think from that, where they're coming from. Where a coach comes from is more important to me than the actual knowledge they have. Now, I really think experience is important in the sense that they need to have seen things, but experience in itself is kind of a meaningless word. Think about the word instinct. You know, why do birds fly south for the winter? And they'll say it's instinct. You know, like that doesn't tell you anything, but it sounds like it did. Oh, I have a lot of experience. That doesn't tell you anything either. It just means you've seen a lot. Well, what does that seeing a lot mean? Well, to me, it's like I have a lot of distinctions. I have a lot of ways of doing things. So it's more likely my experience will affect you or can positively affect you. How do you work with people? How do coaches like to work with teams? Personally, whenever I start out an engagement, which I don't do much now anymore at the PMI, but what I used to do, and I encourage people to do, is I say, look, I know a lot. I've seen a lot. I've been in a lot of organizations. You know more about your company than I will ever know about your company. We need to work together. And if you don't have a coach that's willing to do that, you don't want them. You don't want them to be teaching you and telling you. But on the other hand, if you go into the wrong side of the road, you want to say, hey, you're on the wrong side of the road. So it's not just being passively back. And that's what you want to look at, is have good, deep conversations. Don't just pick a method or approach and then say, oh, that's my guy or woman.
I mean, I think we're meant to be lifelong learners. So I have no problem with people who collect the badges, but experience beats book learning, right? But book learning beats no learning. Right? So I have no problem. I think, you know, people who are gathering lots of, you know, I've got SAFe badges, I've got Scrum at Scale badges. I'm not a huge, you know, I don't put them all up on my CV or anything, but if people aren't willing to learn and go to different places and sort things out, then, you know, they aren't. Agile is about continually learning, right? Mm-hmm. The framework gets you started, but then you want to, you know, you've got to keep, sometimes you've just got to mess things up to keep it interesting, right? So it doesn't just become routine and bored. So you've got to look outside your particular playpen. So I think that badges are fine, but, you know, when you interview them, you're going to go a bit deeper, but at least they'll know what the words mean. You know, I've interviewed people and they put things on their CV, say, I've always been interested in that. Can you tell me a bit about X? And they crash and burn because they don't even know what the words they put on their CV are. You know, if they've got the badge, hopefully they do know what the words mean. You know what I mean? So, and it's about the only way the thought leaders can make any money. So it's a little reward for them.
That's something interesting, you know, in that, you know, talk about what I look for in individuals that are taking this on, but then apply it to the rest of the community. You know, when I'm talking to somebody, I look for evidence that they've actually applied this in their own lives, right? I'm going to help an organization practice Scrum. Tell me how you've used Scrum in your own life. Tell me how you've iterated it yourself. Right. And I look for evidence. You know, we talk about learning. Well, that's what's the actual evidence that your learning actually produced value that's actually reflected in yourself. You may show me you've actually done this. And I think, you know, now I think, you know, you talked about how, you know, you know, your question was kind of like, wow, there's such growth in the community. You know, it really occurred to me later that we're in such an interesting thing. There's so much growth in Agile that we as the Agile community or people who are professional of this can't address the demand. And that's what's opening up the whole world for the people who can take the 2-day course and hang out their shingle as a coach, right? And part of that is that we have failed as an Agile community to iterate our own approach to address this. We can't address these problems fast enough. We have had 3 modes generally for the last 20 years of trying to address this: certified training, coaching, and at some level consulting. And those modes probably aren't serving us anymore, I think, because they're not able to address the problem. So, right. So the thing is, are we willing to experiment on ourselves in that way? Thought leadership is another one. You know, frankly,
Alan was in a deep thought.
I'm skeptical of thought leaders, right? Show me a do leader. Like a thought leader.
I will say my title was given to me. I did not ask for it. And I've gotten a lot of grief because of it. I do not see. I don't really like the title because it kind of says you're out in front of people, and the reality is you're not out in front of. Nobody's out in front of anybody, because what we forget is, okay, we have these IQ scores, and now I know emotional intelligence has come out and things like that. But the reality is you're only good in particular areas. Like, I'm good in math, I'm good in engineering, I'm good in lean and things like that because I've spent years and years on it. I'm not so good on a lot of other things. You know, Bobby Fischer was really good in chess. He wasn't very good socially. And what we have to recognize is that we know stuff and other people know other stuff. Somebody may be the smartest person in the room about a very narrow issue, but nobody's the smartest person in the room about everything. And everybody has something they're smarter about than anybody else in the room all the time. And it goes back to the old HR thing. You want diversity.
I learn more from my customers than they learn from me.
Yes.
Yeah.
When I used to do training, I would thank people at the end of the workshop. Thank you. I learned so much. And absolutely. And if you don't have that, in fact, it's funny, I've noticed something. A lot of times people who are thought leaders, people who've come out with stuff, a lot of people give them a lot of leeway to not be nice. Oh, they're so smart, you know. And I think I've noticed that actually it's usually the nicest thought leaders are the smartest thought leaders because they're open. They don't have any errors. Like Don Reinertson is a guy I totally love. And here I are buddies, you know, but I am always like wondering, why is he giving me his time? Because he's so much smarter about the things we talk about than me, you know, but I assume he's learning something because he spent some time with me, but that's a key piece.
So gentlemen, looking at the time box that we have, we really need to move on to the next topic. There's one more question before we answer a question from Gareth Holbrook from New Zealand. So there's one more question before we go to answer Gareth's question. So the next question I really want to ask you guys is that how to get started. So let's say, okay, after hearing from you guys, really, I want to do it. But I'm in a traditional company that's with about 200 people, right? So I just talked to my boss. He said, yes, all right, go ahead. I'm convinced, right? So from your side, so once he get that consensus from his boss, what are the first few steps he could take? What are some of the crucial ones that he must have, right, to get started?
Yeah, I can answer this. I'll try to be quick. Basically, our approach is fairly simple, and it's what basically the Flex system is based on. It's like, first of all, see what's going on. You know, what's happening in the organization. You want to understand what your goal is. Actually, it's first see what your goal is, agree. If it's about, you know, business agility, like I talked, which is usually what it is, more value added. So see what's going on, see what's stopping you from getting there. This is actually maybe something that's surprising. That in Net Objectives, I watched a lot of really amazing consultants do some amazing results. And even though there were a lot of different industries and domains, what I noticed, a lot of the things were similar that needed to be done. You know, good portfolio management, product management, work on small things, well-organized teams. So it's like, what's going on? What are your challenges to getting to where you want to be because you have the goal? You got to understand where you want to go. It is different if there's hardware or regulated environments. You have to attend to that. Understand your basics of knowledge work, like this inherent problem. Manage this way, workflows that way. Why delays are critical. Value stream, what I call the value stream impedance scorecard. What stops the flow of work? What's the impedance pushing it back? What are factors that make the value streams effective? So if you look at those factors, you have your goal, you know how to, you can see a way to get there. You can see what's in your way of getting there. And then you created what we call an improvement backlog. What are the steps? Like, SAFe has lots of things. Scrum at Scale has lots of things. We have about 40 things, but we don't have a predefined way of which you do or which particular options you do in it. So we say, okay, well, these are the 6 things or so that'll fit you and solve your problems. And then these are the different options you have for those. And these are how you solve it. So it's like a playbook. Here are the 40 things you might do. Which ones do you need to do? How are you going to actually manifest those? And that's basically, in a nutshell, our approach.
Thank you, Alan. Ian, what about SAFe? If I were to get started on SAFe, what are the must do?
Okay, well, the first thing, 200 people, then that's not scaling. That's not my world of scaling. 2,000 people, 200 people. You need to find out, okay, are they 200 people all working on the same thing? Right? Or are they 200 people working on different things? Are they in agile teams or not in agile teams? What problems have you got? Now, for most people, when you start with SAFe, right? SAFe is great at lifting and shifting large numbers of people who are working in a traditional way on a large solution, right? So they are already working on the same product, right? If that's the case, then I'll mention SAFe as the Agile Release Train, which is a team of teams, all focused on building the same thing. So they need a lot of alignment. They need to sort out their way of working. They're going to need to learn about flow and their value streams so they can organize themselves, right? And the way you learn is by doing. I think Benjamin Franklin said, tell me and I'll forget, teach me and I might remember, involve me and I learn. We learn by doing. So what SAFe is great at. So if those 200 people are working on a same product and they've not released anything yet and they're struggling and they have quality problems, they haven't got a DevOps pipeline, then I would go in. The ones that they won't have a shortage of features or big ticket items that they need to get done. So they'll have a big backlog for their train, get them in a room and launch a train. You can do that. We've done it in 2 weeks, right? But that's because they have a real overwhelming problem. They're all working on this thing. They need to change things to get the delivery, to get the customers on board and all that stuff. If they were 10 Scrum teams all working on separate projects, then what you'd want to do is engage at the executive level with like an executive meta Scrum and an EAT from Scrum at Scale or lean portfolio management, if you wanted to sort out those focus issues. But I mean, SAFe is great for lifting and shifting large groups of people. The top-down stuff that people like. So I was at one organization, they'd been doing Agile, they were struggling, they wanted to go SAFe, some people didn't, some people did. We engaged with them and we engaged with the PMO. And we made it easier in that organization to be Agile than waterfall, right? And we sorted out so many problems just with very simple lean portfolio management practices. They told us they had 7 portfolios and we kind of laughed because they didn't. They had 1 portfolio. They didn't even have 7 release trains, right? But they've got to discover that themselves. Nobody likes the smug person who comes in and laughs at what you're doing. So we help them to discover that. So if it's one product, those 200 people are launching a train is a great way to get them becoming Agile together and doing the value stream stuff and looking at that. If they're separate products, lean portfolio management, some format of that, get them closer to what's going on, stop doing projects would be a good place to start.
Okay, Jeff, what about Scrum at Scale? What are the must do and must have if I were to get started with Scrum at Scale?
With Scrum at Scale, the way to start is actually pretty simple, right? Choose a challenging and interesting business problem, whether it's a product development release or some kind of
cost-cutting initiative, but choose a business problem and get a few teams together to focus on that, right? And get them to work, learn the basic fundamentals of Scrum. But then with Scrum at Scale, the other thing that's really important is that you actually, in the framework, you have teams working together, but then systemic impediments often have to be resolved by an executive action team, right? That actually has real executives with real accountabilities on that. And that, because it's guaranteed, if the problem you selected was difficult enough and you give teams the freedom to actually start delivering to address that problem, that systemic impediments will appear automatically, right? In the last two bigger organizations I had, all of a sudden the team started working, they had to deliver, they were very committed, they're working on an interesting problem, and they immediately ran into crazy policy problems from either, in one instance it was purchasing, the other one it was IT policies, right? And actually all of a sudden the C-level, in one case you had C-level executives that had to deal with this IT policy that had been in place for years, that all of a sudden nobody knew how badly it was impeding the team's delivering value. And so that's with Scrum at Scale. This is how you organizationally build the muscle up. You start small and experience those problems and clear them. Right? And so that's what helps an organization really learn. And then as you start doing with more teams and more problems, more impediments start showing up, you look for places you can actually start delivering better. So you could have impediments. I talked about policy problems. The other one was could be a purchasing problem, a huge investment that has to be made that suddenly makes people it helps people deliver faster. So start small, but allow the organization to experience and clear those difficult problems in the beginning. And that's how you start getting good at it.
Thank you, gentlemen. We are coming to the last questions of the day before we are answering the audience questions. So this Mr. Gareth Holbrook from New Zealand, he wrote to us and asked about a fantastic question. He's a SAFe 4.0 practitioner, a PSM, and a DA VSC instructor as well. He says, and I read, from my perspective, the emphasis in SAFe is at the portfolio level and view the enterprise adoption top-down, while Scrum tend to bias towards team-centric considerations and promotes bottom-up transformation. So it's top-down, bottom-up. I don't believe either polarity is entirely right or wrong. However, both are suboptimal. There must be a third way. I have a personal experience of distance between top and bottom with an insulating middle management, which may take this more acute. So the real question here, how might Scrum at Scale, SAFe, and DAFLEX attend to having an enterprise view which is neither biased towards the portfolio or team level?
They don't, because they're not one size fits. The idea is, I'm going to harken back. I'm going to correct something you said a while ago. The first line of the manifesto actually says we are uncovering better ways of building software by doing it and helping other people do it, right? The thing is not to look for a third way and not to work solution. Now I'm gonna point something out. You've got, this is actually what I've really learned from being a practitioner in the Eastern Hemisphere. You got three white guys on this panel who are Westerners talking to people who are from Asia. This is what I've really learned from practicing in Asia, right? That you don't look for a single solution. There could be multiple ways of approaching this problem. And that the way we find out is by practicing and experiencing it. Don't look for a perfect way or a perfect path through this, except within your own organization. Scrum at Scale is just a place to start out. It's a place to start out, and it's a group of components that we suggest that might help you learn stuff quickly. But it's not, again, it's not a place where we're inflicting a solution. And that's true of SAFe too. And of any framework, it's not the framework, it's the people, right? So this, so the thing is, if I'm looking for the great people, for the great solution inside an organization, I teach some basic practices. I let people discover their own best way.
That's one thing in Scrum at Scale. We call it incrementally crafting the best organization. And that's not something the framework determines. It's something the people determine.
Yeah, I agree with what Jeff said, but I do want to add something. I think if there's one thing that Agile has taught us, it's that, and Lean in particular, actually, and I don't mean Lean manufacturing, I mean the thought process behind Lean, is that hierarchical thinking is old school. In other words, we shouldn't be managing from hierarchies anymore. In fact, Vic Kerson's great book, Project to Product, which is more about a software type thing. There are projects out in the world, but running knowledge work as projects is a bad thing. And the idea of project to product is you start looking at the value stream. How do I get the idea generators from the front of the value stream all the way through to the end where it gets back to the customer? That's what's important. So what Lean suggests, and I guess I'm a big believer in this, and I think it is kind of universal, although I believe the solution, this is a thought process, the solution, I agree with you, Jeff, it depends on where people are and where you're starting. But instead of thinking hierarchically in silos, which is a top to bottom, and you can hear where people are coming from when they talk top to bottom, is we want to think in terms of the value stream. If it's clogged, anywhere it's clogged is a clog, you know, and what we do with the Discipline Agile Value Stream Consultant, it's called Value Stream Consultant because we want our focus there. And then the question is, where in the value stream do you want to start? And maybe you need to start across the value stream. Maybe you need to start at the front of the value stream. Maybe you need to start at the end of the value stream. Maybe you need to have a structure for the value stream. And I could put SAFe and Scrum at Scale in this. SAFe gives you a structure to work on the value stream, but people often don't think about the value stream. Scrum at Scale often works at the tail end with the teams and then puts it together. You know, and what I like about SAFe starting is sometimes it's jammed because nobody's collaborating with each other. So you have a structure for collaboration in the middle of the value stream. I have seen organizations get started extremely well with SAFe because all of a sudden you've unjammed that. Then they get jammed later because now they focus on that and they forget the other part. Anywhere a hose is clogged, clogs the hose. So I think we have to shift from top bottom, shift from hierarchical thinking. What Lean says, look at the value stream, make it so the people have an environment within which to work, and then you decide where you have to start, and that could be front, back, the whole thing, the middle. And that's my perspective, and that's what we do as our approach. You get different results based on where people are and what they need to solve.
Unfortunately, I didn't hear most of Jeff's answer as I lost my connection. But I think that if you want to be successful with Agile, you need top-down support. You need support at the highest level. Without that, you'll have a glass ceiling. You also need bottom-up support, because if you don't win the hearts and minds of the people doing the work, they won't change, right? Now, what I've seen with SAFe and with Scrum at Scale is the importance of having, as Jeff mentioned, I don't know what he talked about in his last answer, he mentioned the executive action team in the one before I lost my connection. You need to get change in those higher levels of the organization, right? So you need both. I once, someone directed me at a video someone had done saying top-down Agile doesn't work. The guy at the top said, go Agile, he gave us the job. And we screwed it up, and it was his fault. That was basically the gist of the talk. It's not the people at the top from saying go Agile, it's the people they put in their center of excellence or whatever grandiose name people wish to give themselves to make themselves sound important, who screw it up. It's the middle managers. So you need that pressure on the middle, and it comes from the top and the bottom. And lean portfolio management used to be something that lagged in SAFe because there weren't that much experience. Now, because executives are moving around, we're seeing some people are starting with lean portfolio management as they did at the customer I mentioned before, right? Because if you can make it easier to be agile, right? So for this organization, people at the top said, we've restructured how we're going to do our reporting and the numbers, right? And we've changed how we're going to do CapEx and OpEx, right? If you would like to be waterfall, Ethan, you can, right? But you're going to have to give us these numbers that we need to run the business and whatever numbers you're collecting for your way of working.
Wish
right?
they
So
could
just make it easier for people to have that. And it is all about culture. And culture can lead and lag behind these things, but it's going to be, but remember what we're trying to do. So I think you need, to be really successful, you need pressure from above and below, right? To make sure everything's moving in the right and the culture's changing. Otherwise, when a problem bubbles up that needs, I was at one organization, they couldn't meet the definition of done for any of their stories because they had no laptops. They were being paid more a day than the laptops would cost. And yet they went up and said, can we have this equipment? And it just went into a void. It just went up and it went up again. And they were going, oh, we should just go home. Right, we're just building technical debt here. Right? Because people weren't removing the impediments, systemic problems in the organization, as Jeff will have been talking about. So I think you need both, to be honest.
Thank you. It comes a time when we can take some of the live questions from the Q&A. So I'm going to pass to Rachel. Rachel is going to read out the questions, and I'll be going on to the background and pass it to Rachel then. All right?
Sure. Hi, guys. It's me again, Rachel. Wow. Thank you so much for sharing so many insights on Scrum at Scale, DAFLEX, as well as SAFe. So we are seeing a couple of good questions over here, but due to time restrictions, we'll just take a couple of questions for the speaker. And I'm going to start with the first one that the audience would like you to answer is, it's actually from Thor Verapad. He's actually asking that how can we measure the business agility progress in our Agile transformation journey? Is there anyone who would like to take this question?
Well, the first thing is, are you achieving the big business results that you defined for yourself? Right? Remember those simple business results, right? Set up, are we going to increase revenue or cut costs or increase market share? One company I work with, it was reducing the turnover rate in employees, which was huge, right? So keep it simple when you're, don't fall into the metrics trap, right? Keep simple measures that are exposed that everybody can work for. There are a lot of ways, and then if within that goal, there are a lot of ways to measure in your organization that can measure your ability to deliver, your ability to remove impediments, things like that. But I would still emphasize, keep it simple. Don't create too many measures.
Yeah, I would agree. I actually have an interesting answer that I got from a guy's not very well known. Alan Chetalawada was president of Net Objectives for a while, and he was an amazing consultant. And a lot of his ideas I kind of learned by watching him. And I've always credited him for a lot of the things that are in Flex. And he had one measure that he always started with. And that measure was, what are the number of releases you have to the customer? And at first I thought, that's too simple. And it can be gamed. And then I started thinking about it. How would you game that? You would game that by releasing more often smaller pieces. But wait a moment, that's a good thing. This is the one measure I have found. If you can increase the number of deliveries that the customer actually wants to get that has value, that's a good thing. And that'll tend to get you more frequent, smaller, which is really what you want. So it's a good gauge.
I see. How about Ian? Do you have any say about this?
To be honest, I've no idea what business agility is. I know everyone talks about business agility. And I haven't seen a shared definition of it. Right? I do know that the measures you use when working in development value streams, developing products, are very different from those that you find if you're running a hospital or things where, the repercussions of failing are much more serious. So as Jeff said, you should be focusing on your business objectives and showing that where you are going agile, you are getting better results as a business. That's what people are looking for at the top. SAFe has its definition of business agility, and it's got a big measurement framework for measuring that kind of stuff. But a lot of these things, they fall back on how agile you are as a secondary measure. right? It's about your success. Are you achieving your goals? Are you moving the dials? So, flow measures are intrinsic to make sure your framework is working. But when you're looking at your business, there's all kinds of things. Maybe you're going agile because you're losing loads of people, right? So think about those objectives you had and inspect and adapt them as you go along, because what you're going to find is that once you've moved you've sorted out your big problem is now somewhere else, right? And you're going to want to look at that. Wise man once said, whenever you have a surplus of something, you end up with running out of something else. And in today's world, we have a surplus of information and we're running out of attention. So as Jeff said, you need a small set of simple things that you're paying attention to, and they're going to change over time, right? Because of your as an organization matures, different issues and problems will arise, different scaling problems, all kinds of stuff. So long term, you're going to keep finding that you want to pay attention to different things and stuff like that.
Yeah, okay, thank you so much, Ian. And thank you so much for the audience for actually being okay for actually extending 5 minutes. So here I'm actually going to take another question, and it's actually coming from Dylan Xiao. So he's actually saying that no framework is 100% foolproof, be it SAFe, Scrum at Scale, or DAFLEX. And sure, it does not apply to everybody. So when something is not broken in the organization, why should we actually go and fix it, right? So what's your take on this, Jeff, Al, as well as Ian?
Yeah, I want to start with this. First of all, disciplined agile is not a framework. I personally think frameworks are flawed because all frameworks are built on some set of practices which may or may not apply. And that what you want to do is an approach, something that lets you look at the problem after identifying your goal, seeing what's in the way, and then have it help build a kind of a improvement backlog. In fact, the way Discipline Agile is based, especially the Discipline Agile Value Stream Consultant, is I've been basically doing a job task analysis of what a organization needs, an internal person would need to do to identify the problems. That's called job task analysis. Like what are the issues? Then what's a system, in a sense, a thought process, a set of things that are good to know, like flow and lean and theory of constraints. These things all help you. And then you have this system that you use to help solve the problems you've identified, and these are the tasks you have to do. And then the workshop, Discipline Agile Value Stream Consultant, is how do you put the system and the people together? So frameworks are an approach, and there are advantages to frameworks because frameworks give you a starting point, do these things. Some of them have more flexibility where they start than others, but it gives you a quick set, but that set may or may not be applicable. So that's why we also have this choose your way of working, and we have the consultant work with people to figure out what that quick set is. And then it's a question of how do you get to fit for purpose? And Jeff and Ian have been talking about this. They haven't used the words fit for purpose, but that's basically what they're talking about. How do you take Scrum at scale? How do you take SAFe and make it fit for purpose for the people? We do it with actually just more the toolkit and the thought process. And I think that's an important distinction, that we're actually not a framework and have avoided being a framework.
Okay. Yep. How about Ian and Jeff? Any quick one before we end the session?
Yeah, the thing is, often it has nothing to do with the framework, but the matter of approach. In this industry, and a lot of companies inflict Agile or inflict some particular framework on their people instead of actually inviting them in to solve the business problem. There's a certain realm of an approach to Agile called open space agility, which actually really directly addresses this issue, right? And where the challenge is a lot of organizations just are looking for a solution that they can inflict on their organization, and that almost never works, right? So whatever you choose, you invite people in and let them choose it. Al mentioned frameworks. I
I do. I look at Scrum not so much as a framework, but as a realm of practice, right? The same way that there are many approaches to yoga. There's hatha yoga, pure physical yoga, different kinds of yoga that you can choose based on what you want to do, right? This is just a realm of practice that I found produces great results for people. But it's not, depending on the business problem you're trying to solve, there might be better approaches to it, like SAFe.
Yep. All right.
Disciplined action. Yeah.
Great. Nice to hear from you. So Ian, you look like you have something to say before I...
Well, I mean, I actually quite like frameworks. A great way to accelerate what you're doing. It's that, as I mentioned, that the Henrik Nieberg little man teetering on a big cairn of rocks between the bloody stakes of bureaucracy on one side and the flames of chaos on the other. Right? You've got to look at the organization as a whole, right? You have to break down built up folklore, traditional stuff. Sometimes you need a revolution. Sometimes you need a reset. A better waterfall is still a waterfall. Better project management is still project management, right? So I like SAFe as a great way to reset large people, but the framework is your starting point, not your end point. Right? I was with one organization. When you're dealing with an organization with 1,000 people, hundreds of agile teams, they have to have a common vocabulary. They have to have some common ground. You have to be able to roll the numbers up and down. I've seen companies where they're self-selecting their agile way of working, and some of the teams are outside financial governance, right, which is illegal in the jurisdictions in which they are trading. Other people are outside the legal and regulatory compliance they have to achieve to get their products to market, right? So you have to have a way to join it all up. Now, there's something that is less than any of the published frameworks, right, that would allow you to matriculate an organization and observe and measure flow. I'm a big fan of value streams, but I've been thinking about writing a paper. Value flows like water, not the steps in a process. So a lot of people, when they focus on their value stream, they're actually putting up barriers and the value starts going around the edges. They shadow IT in organizations, all kinds of stuff going on. So what you need is to be able to visualize the flow of value and adjust as it changes. Otherwise you get oxbow lakes and all kinds of little things hanging around organizations and things like that. So it's about the frameworks are just a way to big step, get everyone going. Now we've got a common vocabulary. Now we have a basis to improve. And Jeff Sutherland's got a great Scrum at Scale case study he's working on, where an organization had a brilliant SAFe rollout and they cut their cycle times by more than half. And then one of the trains took some Scrum at Scale ideas and took things to the next level. But I mean, they would qualify as still doing SAFe. And they would qualify as doing Scrum at Scale, right? Because what they haven't done is gone rogue, right? And have a different vocabulary and different job titles. I was at one organization, a guy was doing something that was business critical. This is a major bank, and if they didn't do this, the regulators were going to shut them down. And every place he went, he had to talk to a different person in a different language. Every single place he went. Oh, you need to talk to the product owner about epics and stories. No, the product manager about features. No, the value stream owner about bets. Right? Everywhere they went, different language. That's not transparent. That's your Tower of Babel. So I think they're a good way to reset to something more agile and then accelerate your journey. Right? But it's not your end goal. If you're still doing what it says in the book after a couple of years, you haven't read the book properly. Okay.
So thank you so much, gentlemen. I think the audiences are telling us that we are doing a pretty good job. They have been enjoying the session a lot, and thank you so much, the gentlemen, for doing this with us. So, and thank you for all the participants that spent about 90 minutes with us as well. It's been a long sessions, longer than our usual 60 minutes. Thanks for the patience. For everyone, please stay tuned to CI Agile. We are going to have the recording of this event and all the previous event in the last week. Once we have composed the video, we'll publish it via CI Agile LinkedIn account. Please follow the CI Agile LinkedIn account. Okay, and whatever free stuff we have, we'll publish it from there. So again, thank you everyone. Thank you speakers. Thank you participants. Good night. Good night. Enjoy, and for all the Muslims, enjoy a great holiday ahead.